Do it. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wait, what's this called? Big announcement coming soon? Yeah, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome to the Big Announcement Coming Soon podcast. I'm one of your many hosts, Michael Bull. We got a full house today with Nick Garvin, David Collette, and Jeff Renson. Good to see all of you here. It looks like nobody has any catastrophes in their life, and they're able to make the show. So thank you for your commitment, ladies and gentlemen. And boy, am I hyped up this morning.
Yeah, Mike, you're raring to go. I like this energy.
Well, let's do this. We're talking about all kinds of things. We got the end of the world coming to us. We got CBDCs and CBD, which is really what we need a lot of. Forget the C. But we're going to start off with Nick. He's going to talk about fantasy sports, Web3 again, hoodie, MFer madness. This is crazy. Nick, lead us off and keep us awake.
Yeah, super crazy, right? I stumbled across a Twitter space the other day, and
wow, a Twitter space.
Yeah, it was a nice little, chat room. Do you remember chat rooms? It's like a chat room.
I do.
Wait,
yeah.
Mike, have you not seen Twitter Spaces?
I have. I'm from the AOL days, so I've seen it all.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. So it was titled Hoodie MFer Madness, and if you're not familiar with the PFP community MFers, it's a great group of degens and just like pretty, like bros, like they're probably very much similar to like what your rec guy community is, right? They
kind of like what we have
really
here, massive male misogyny.
Yeah. I mean, like,
but there's a lot of levity for MFers. Like the whole community seems like we're in it for a laugh, and it's cool, and everyone agrees. Like, yes, it is cool and hilarious.
MFers do what they want to do.
It's a good
right?
vibe in there. I don't have any, but
hey, anything to get those guys out of their parents' basements playing Xbox for a couple of minutes to socialize is a plus in my book.
Well, I don't know if the MFer doesn't necessarily promote that as a dude sitting at his computer smoking a cigarette, right? If I don't remember correctly.
I feel like
you see your friends on Discord from the basement.
Do not leave. Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Okay, my ignorance. And sorry, you kept interrupting Mr. Leo there. Go ahead.
Oh, Mike's the dad that walks into the room in the MFer meme, right? And he's like, "Are you winning, son?"
That's true.
Are we winning, son?
Right.
Have you got a job yet? I'm learning, Dad.
Okay. Yeah, need more fiat, Dad. It's win CBD. But anyways, what I like about this, right, is not only is it an entryway into the MFer community, but it's tagged to the March Madness tournament. So it's the second year it's happened. Last year they did it. And what you do is you mint an NFT. There's 64 of them at max, and you can have up to 2 per wallet. You mint it, and then the next day is the reveal right before tip-off of the tournament. You find out who you have. This year I drew Crichton, and I Googled him immediately because I didn't really follow the tournament, and I found out they're a dark horse, and now boom, I'm in the Sweet 16. So I'm really into it. There's prizes along the way. There's a lot of shit talking. There's a lot of MFers just being MFers, right? Like it's a fun way to connect and just like, I don't know, celebrate and kind of get back into something in a time that most people are just like really like bearish, especially in the NFT community right now.
And is there a payout for the winner if you hold that's whoever wins the tournament?
Yeah, so there's 2 top prizes. You can have your choice. There's one that's going to be like an unminted Nakamingo, which is not only an ordinal collection but an ETH collection that's actually dropping tomorrow morning. And then MFer number 53, which was donated by the creator of MFers, Satoshi himself. So that's also in the prize pool. You can choose which one you want. The second place winner gets the leftover. But there's also a big prize wallet that's linked in the article that we'll link below, and it has all sorts of donations from the crazies and derivatives and some MFer motos and some rare Pepe artists who have also done some stuff that just help out and dropped in and donated stuff. So they gave away prizes like the biggest upset or first to get eliminated. It's not just if you make it. It's fun, but it's a nice way to kind of tether yourself to a community, bet a little bit, and then just kind of go along for the ride. And there are people that are like, hey, I have Alabama. Like, I'll sell you it for 1 ETH. And I think it's kind of funny, right? Because it's like you used to just bet on a team and stick with that team. But now it's like, I'm on the blockchain, and if you agree, you have that team now. And I think that's a cool part of sports betting in this case, which is one thing I'm drawn to in this little experiment.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
to be honest, I don't
fun.
do any basketball stuff because I'm not from America, and we have a whole other set of sports over here.
In New Zealand,
the world,
sports?
actually.
I thought you
all of the world. We don't play the interesting, weird games you guys play, but nonetheless, I watch Formula One, and I'm in the fantasy Formula One league, and yeah, I could totally see how this would be cool. Like because I get to choose my team and the constructors that I'm going to choose, and then swap them out and figure out what kind of points I'm going to get. If I could get and then I'm in the leagues that you can see where you're ranked. And so, yeah, you could totally by gamify, because it's a little janky. It's just kind of like, okay, cool, I won or not. But you got an NFT for each week, you were made the most points, or you got the highest rank, or whatever it is. And then hey, it's quite interesting. Yeah. I mean, I could see how you could get into it. Yeah.
One thing that maybe I should float to the creator of this, which is just another MFer from the community who's drawn people together, which I also think is great because it's very grassroots, very derivative. And one thing I think is cool is that maybe you just propose the idea that if you have a MFer from the first season, 2021 and 2022, you may be able to keep them, and if they make it back to the NCAA later on, maybe you have to battle out or something. I don't know how you would gamify it if you had to scale it, right? But instead of making it a year by year thing, then you could really keep it seasonal and trade, during certain times. And I think
you're just proposing a full fantasy league, but
on the blockchain.
But really, it's because people think about the entire league, and this is a small tournament, but with extra things thrown in. So you could fantasy league anything you want with 40 NFTs and start betting on anything, really, outcomes of different TV shows, sports events, and then rewarding people. And it's just a fun way to keep track of stuff.
What's interesting is you could actually I pay $70 a year for F1 TV. You could from the proceeds of the NFT sale goes to the winner gets their season pass paid for next year or something like that. And you suddenly just kind of have an instant reward mechanism built in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a very engaging way to unite people around something and have a ritual being born out of something that's going to be there. The NCAA is not going away, right? And it makes the MFers have a bit more staying power as well.
Definitely more stable than the banking systems, the NCAA.
Speaking of which,
probably equal number of lobbyists too.
Shall we move on to the end of the world?
Yeah.
So we had the age of easy money. Now this is David going full old school, pulling up PBS, something from my generation, and watching Frontline again from my generation, a 2-hour show. Watches it, gets so excited he gets his wife involved with it. David, can you sum up a 2-hour program in less than 8 minutes?
Yeah, no, definitely. I watched it twice, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure. And told everybody to watch it, and then insulted them when they didn't watch it.
I've got it here ready to go. I'm downloading the audio version. Take a listen.
I'll watch it. I'm ready.
Nice. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. It's basically just so if you ever watch The Big Short or Margin Call, they kind of tell you the story of how the 2008 crisis happened. This will essentially tell you how, if we're in a crisis right now, how that's happened, or at least how we got to where we are now, and whatever this now means currently is. So essentially, it's just really interesting. It's interesting because we kind of already knew it, but we always just didn't think about it, and it makes me reflect back on 2008, and everyone was I just remember people buying different houses and flipping houses, and that was the new thing. And you're a teacher, but you're also flipping houses. Yeah, exactly. And it didn't really make sense, but because everyone was doing it, they were yeah, I guess this is just the new thing everyone does. And then essentially what that was in the last 10 years was meme stocks, and I'm gonna be my own Robin Hood trader, and also housing came back, and all these other things, and so it's kind of you got to look at why we might be in trouble now based on how we dealt with 2008. And so what happened in 2008 was that basically, and this is kind of what's really interesting about the program, is that it really explains how banking systems work. And so you usually think of a bank as this is a place that's very secure with a vault in it, and you go in and get your money, or you leave your money, right?
It's insured.
Exactly, right. Yeah. But that's not what a bank is anymore, logically, if we think about it. There's no stacks of money. There is, but that's not the holdings of the bank. It's really just this massive network of everyone in the financial community just moving money around on different ledgers, making sure that all the debts are paid at every one time. And so what happened in 2008 was that it wasn't so much that subprime caused the financial crisis. It's that subprime caused banks to become unsafe, and then so everyone seized up and stopped contributing to the network. And so because
they bought all the the CDOs, I can't say it, collateralized debt obligations that were made up of all the subprime mortgages, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that was in some ways worse. Exactly,
One
in some
fed
ways
the
worse than what we have now, because they were investing their money in things that were worth like nothing, because they were just like made up, and so that was a huge problem. And so you had this huge economic bubble that like suddenly burst, and then underneath it was like this hardcore infrastructure that ran everybody's Main Street lives and needed to be saved. And so the way they saved it is, well, the reason they needed to save it wasn't because subprime collapsed, it's because the banks stopped lending to each other. And so essentially, in order for an economy to make money, you pull stuff out of the ground and you make stuff with it, and then you move that stuff around the economy as fast as you can. Like speed of money, velocity of money is part of it. And so the velocity of money slows down, you get a massive recession. Nobody's lending to your small business or homeowner who wants to buy a house or refinance their foreclosing house or anything like that. They're just going under.
Can I jump in really quick and say this also happened in January and February 2020 before COVID? Banks were having this same issue, and then COVID happened, and now we're here. So just as we do the timeline, like COVID caused a lot of things, but the same issue 2020 and 2008, 2009 with banks refusing to overnight lend. So the LIBOR,
it was going to happen anyways?
The overnight rate goes super high up. It was starting to happen before COVID, and COVID just made it worse, but exact same situation. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, this is really good because essentially it's like kicking a can down the road. Every once in a while you catch up to the can, you got to give it another kick. So that happened in 2020, and it just so conveniently happened right before COVID. So COVID essentially was a huge problem for the economy and everything, compounded with this. And so they just unleashed money supply onto the economy. The way they put it in the video is, as someone from the Fed at the time or someone like that would put it, they weren't very discerning where they put money. They just kind of said, there looks like to be a fire over there, and they just dumped money on it, and then just dumped money. And another analogy was like they just, if the Fed in 2008 was using a bazooka, this time they just basically took the fire hose out, just left it on the street. Right. And so what happened in terms of money printing, I mean, it's weird because we know this, we saw this happen, and we were just like, yeah, I mean, quantitative easing, they needed it for after, the crash, and they put all this money in the bank system. Okay, that was a bit of a one-off, but they didn't stop. They keep going. And then there was a taper tantrum in 2018, and you didn't need to really do it at all, but the markets went down, they printed a bunch more money. And at that point, the market started to lose faith in they thought they were always backed, right? And so that kind of led to where we are now, where you have very safe assets. And it was a really good point that was made. I think this is probably I'll turn it over. But if the federal government for the last however long has been saying, borrow money at these rates, we want you to borrow money at these rates to get the economy going, right? Here are these really super low rates. You should do it. You should put them in these safe securities. And then as we lead up to this crisis, they're like, don't worry, inflation is transitory. It's just not a problem. It's just transitory. Is SVB really to blame for trusting what the Fed kept saying to them? Because they also FDIC insured.
They should know better or have their own opinion. But, at least have some risk management.
But they do, and also they are by the government of California, FDIC audited on a quarterly basis. The FDIC knew this. It's not like this was a secret. They're like, and they had goodness, what happened?
Yeah, they knew. At least the New York Times had been reporting that they'd been worried about them for a while.
Yeah, exactly. And so if these banks are kind of like slightly worrying, and you're in this network of money where every once in a while everyone just needs to, oh crap, this bank is a problem, I'm just going to lend to them, and then they stop again. That's what causes the next crisis. And that's kind of what we're seeing a little bit now, because essentially what's happening is lots of money is flowing out of regional banks and into big banks, because why would you keep your money in regional banks?
If you had big money over 250,000, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And all that's money that's not going to be able for those banks to lend out to the public to keep the economy going. So it's the same kind of.
Or to invest in long-term bonds. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All that stuff.
Isn't the bigger problem that they just didn't have enough deposits on hand? I mean, we go back to Glass-Steagall and blame all that, or the lowering.
But again, like if you think
required deposit.
But banking, that's how a really good example works. Banks must keep 10% only. If you keep more than 10% on hand, even if you're just buying 0.5% T-bills, you're not making money. right? The banks need to create to make money. And I know a lot of it's made off of mortgages, and business loans.
Is 10% the magic number? Is the question. So maybe.
But I think we're thinking
it's competitive with other
wrongly.
banks, so all banks would need to keep 50% then.
Right.
There should
this
be
is
then
the
more
old-
bank runs then, if that's the case.
This is
right?
the old model. Exactly. Exactly. What Nick is saying is correct. And the reason is because you guys are still thinking of a bank as this institution with a vault with money in it. That's not how a bank is, right?
No, but-
if you're out of money, someone else in the system will just bail you out and like bring the money into circulation into make sense. Because otherwise what happens is what's happening right now. So the only reason what happens right now happens is because someone at some point didn't want to kick the can anymore. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's the problem. Is
that
that
SVB couldn't get the temporary amount of cash that they needed to cover deposits, and then everybody freaked out.
And they had to do something drastic, which started to lead to woes. And then people were like, oh, well, maybe these other banks. And like you saw First Republic today, right? They just announced, even after the $30 billion, they still are. They just announced they need government bailout actually to keep it. So they will need to do something. Wow. And what's interesting is watching a documentary right now. Is in the entirety of 2021, the federal home loan bonds, which is another way of a discount window of getting money quickly if you're a bank with home loans, was $450 billion. They pulled that much out, which was a significant rise. It's kind of as steep as the rise in 2008. It's being reported that in the last weeks, that has gone 400 again. So doubled again the entirety of 2021. What that says to you is that banks are in desperate need of cash and they don't have it, and they're going to borrow it from the government to get it, which might be fine. It might keep them alive and all that stuff, but it definitely signifies that there's significant problems in the economy right now underlying all of it. And so it won't be the banks that go under because they're all basically getting backed.
But why did it say that there's significant issues in the economy? Isn't it just a fear thing that everybody's afraid, or are they afraid because they actually need the money and they're trying to yank it out?
Well, yeah, no, it's called so the very broad term for it is a Minsky moment. It's when you dump so much money into your economy that it's just swimming in it, and then it needs to start coming out. The speed that it starts coming out ramps over the amount that it's growing at any one time, and your economy is essentially shrinking no matter what you can do, because you just need to drain it of all this excess liquidity that's been, as we were saying, the amount the Fed has printed in the last 10 years. There's just 10 years of 0% interest rates. And the real core problem is this: if you put your economy onto a 10-year regime of 0% interest rates, everyone adjusts their models to do that. And then you jack it to 5. Something's going to happen. Everyone from 10 years has thought that was totally fine, and then suddenly, boom. So we're starting to see what's happening now, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not convinced this is going to be insane. Couldn't it just be the simple, these things happen? We cycle through, we cycle out. Is this somehow different?
It depends on how quickly they rescue the situation and how much money keeps fleeing.
I think you're saying the rescue will just continue the problem.
Well, yeah. Well, it kind of depends. Yeah. So exactly what we were talking about last podcast is happening. Essentially, people in the banks are saying, "Wait, these banks are offering me 0% interest, and they're seemingly dangerous to put my money in. Why am I not holding treasuries for 5%?" And that's what they're doing. They're selling them for treasuries. So nobody is putting money in the bank to invest in the economy. They're just investing in the Fed, and that's not going to help your economy grow. It's just going to go like this. That's the thing. Unless you're arrested somehow. And the only way you do that is just hose it with money.
Yeah.
Again.
So question, where's the liquidity going, right? Because we've also every week every month have had a different meta as to what is stable, right? Or to the point where even meme stocks or crypto dick butts were the stable coin, right? More reliable than USDC, UST. Where's the liquidity going if we're in this crunch?
So it's going odd places, because in 2008 they were buying up treasury bills and bonds, and then in 2020 they started buying up basically debt from companies. So if you held bond equity of another junk company's debt at your company, they were buying up stuff like that and buying up stock. So it goes
that's the problem. It's in the stock market, in the bond market. Yeah, everything. Everything is just an everything bubble. Everything is vastly overvalued versus what people can afford to pay from it, which you see from the Zoomers. They can't afford anything, right? They these crazy interest rates. And so what must happen is just stocks are overvalued, bonds are overvalued, housing is overvalued. Maybe gold isn't overvalued. That's the argument.
But that's what they're buying.
It's very
now.
doomer, and so it's often wrong because everybody has called it for years. But that is what the evidence looks at, right? I mean, it doesn't look pretty.
And so I guess the direct answer to your question, Nick, is the money goes from the company onto the corporate balance sheet to knock debt off. So they don't have negative assets. They now have unloaded those assets. They have some cash. Right. And then you spend it on corporate bonuses.
Wow. Yeah. If you took a loan out against your ape and it went down in value and you're still paying off that $1 million ape and it's only worth $60,000, you're underwater, but you still have to pay it back, but you're just spending money on nothing rather than it productively being used in the economy.
And that's what it goes back
to situation.
It goes back to affecting the velocity of money, like you mentioned, right? So it's all
it just slows everything.
Turns into vapor.
Well, yeah, essentially what you get is zombie banks. We basically have all this debt that they can't lend out, so they just have to wait it out. And so you might see like 10 years. This is kind of the argument of what's happened in Japan. Japan is kind of the early canary in the coal mine.
They started the 10 years of no growth or whatever?
Yeah, or 20 now, right? It's basically because like the Japanese government owns more than 50% of the bond market. It just keeps buying everything from people and printing money into the market. And so it does solve the problem, but it's just more kicking the can. Right. So like what did Japan jet GDP is 250%, 300 by now, maybe? I don't know.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah, it's by far way up America. Like Japan will one day be the interesting case on whether we go to a debt jubilee situation where we're like, yep, we just really messed it all up. So we're buying all of the bonds from the government, from the market, and then we're just going to declare them null and void. Let's start over.
All right, Dave. So what's the Fed going to do today?
Man, I think they're going to go zero because I have some faith in Powell, bravely enough, but like if they go 25, all hell will break loose. But they very well could. That's
so 0 basis points is your prediction, maybe a quarter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do a quarter point up.
We should move on a little bit. So we had the end of the world, but now we have crypto heaven in Florida, where libertarians go so that they won't have to be annoyed by the tyranny of Disney. Thank God for Governor DeSantis, who has decided to propose a law to ban CBDCs because the Biden administration is studying the possibility of introducing a central bank digital currency. And the man who's still afraid to take on Trump, even though he's been called a pedophile and potentially gay by him, has now instead decided to go after not only just Disney, but CBDC. So is that a big deal? Like some state's going to ban a specific thing or monetary instrument versus what the federal government does?
It's a talking point, but it's good.
Yeah, it's a talking point.
Is it a pointless talking point, or does it actually make sense?
I think for the base.
I thought you guys were big fans of CBDC.
He makes a lot more sense as of like today. I know 2 weeks ago we were kicking around the idea. We were talking about CBDCs, and I said like the government's got it in their back pocket ready. They just haven't. They don't have the scenario to roll it out. And I think where David left off is, well, what if we debt jubilee our way with the CBDC so you can directly, instead of going through banks and wondering how banks lend to each other, because part of what's in the documentary that David talks about, the treasuries would pump money into the banks and the banks wouldn't pump it into the economy. So some of the things from 2008 that the Fed tried didn't get followed through on partnerships from banks. So get rid of them.
That's a really awesome point.
Signature Bank. They killed Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley had a bank run. Well, maybe they helped start it. Signature was just taken out, as Barney Frank said. It didn't have issues. Get rid of all the mid-level banks, have large ones, and then if you can CBDC everyone's account, you can start giving them 5% in their bank account to not take money out. You can start leveraging taxes straight from it. You can just start haircutting people like they've done in Italy and Greece and just take money from corporate bank accounts. And you can print a lot more easily and give everybody a ton of money and say debts don't exist anymore. It makes the system a lot faster, and the Fed's lost a lot of its independence. It used to be an independent, right? That's a nice way of saying private banks started the Fed and still run the Fed. The government wants to take that over. This is the U.S. Most other countries, the government has a lot more control over their central bank. In the U.S., it's supposed to be independent, and that's been coming together between the Fed and the White House has gotten closer and closer over the last couple of administrations with less independence. But this would help eliminate it, and then all the monetary policy changes they want to make, whether it's cash stimulus to people or writing off debt, it's a lot easier on a CBDC That you don't get the banks involved. They mess it all up for the government.
So is the CBDC coming?
I think it's a really good point, like what Jeff just said, because like, why would I keep my money at the bank earning me 0% when I can own a treasury? That's essentially what a CBDC is, right? It just makes a treasury $1 and offers me 5% interest on holding it or whatever it is.
And not spending it and driving inflation down if I'm automatically getting 5%.
So why is that a bad thing? Okay, on the surface, it sounds just great.
I know.
Well, it would give enormous...
Everyone's on a wallet. Everyone's like, it's intrusive.
Well, you guys
Privacy,
give the negatives. I'll give the positives. It would make the Federal Bank of America the most powerful thing in the world, outside even beyond, I think, the American government. But because it controls the money supply of the world essentially, and everything else. But irrespective of that, to be honest, I mean, it is a great idea. Like if I was government, I would totally want to do this because all the stuff Jeff described are called inefficiencies in the system. They don't allow you to collect efficient tax. They require lots of effort. And so you're spending money even faster in that case. You can actually rescue your economy from significant productivity loss by adopting a CBDC. So there is huge productive benefit from doing so. On the other side, of course, everybody will know, a dollar is a dollar. And if I give my dollar to, Joe Blow or Schmo or whatever his name, nobody knows. But on the CBDC, everyone will know what you do with your money at all the time. And is that a change we're willing to make ethically? I don't know. I personally, I am actually. I don't care. I can also use other chains to have money secret. But the benefits it would provide to society in a time that we need is so huge that I have to be for it.
Does it get to the point though where it becomes some extreme like morphism, like of like a WeChat kind of vibe, right? Where you end up like you jaywalk across the road and all of a sudden they took some CBDC out of your wallet and you've already been fined before you made it across the street, right? I mean, with
between
the ticket,
that or like they watch people in the Uyghur communities in China. If you don't buy pork and liquor, they come and arrest you. Other people, if you're buying too much, they come and they stop you, they cut you off. So I don't want the government controlling what I buy. Already weed out here is cut from the banking system, even though it's legal. I'd hate to be in a state where abortion was illegal, go across state lines and pay for an abortion, go back and have the government be like, this is what you did. Or I go to Thailand to get that abortion and they can see that I transferred from my CBDC to Thai bot CBDC and back because they're all working together. Like the government needs to.
Or you go to Thailand to get weed and just.
The government's not supposed to be part of anyone's life. It came in because the system's too big. But like them having any business in what I do day to day or knowing anything is not the way that like society or I guess it's the way society was. Humanity is supposed to work. Like why do they get to decide anything?
That's a slippery slope, right?
I would, that's the line you have to draw in the sand. What is civilization? What is not? But I would say there's really let's provide a couple of good examples of how it could help. Like
keep in mind we only got about 2 to 3 minutes left in the show. So
I'll take 30 seconds. I'm tired of spammers online tricking old grannies how to send money to them and getting scammed and stuff like that. I'm tired of the way the government because I help with my wife's mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, just with her banking and stuff because she's old. It's so complicated and so old school and stuff. This would help so much. So there's huge benefits for a lot of society in this. But just in the same way that, I would argue the same thing that happened with the internet, right? We all signed up and put our identities online and suddenly everyone knew where we were. So kind of a similar thing has already happened. I would argue we're kind of already screwed. Like the idea that you can hide your money in this day and age is kind of a pipe dream.
I don't want to hide my money. I want to be able to buy as much sugar as I want without the New York State saying you can't buy large sodas, which they've done.
And so but there's a reason. There's a reason we always use China in these examples and never actually use countries that are liberal democracies, right? Because those kind of things wouldn't be accepted by the society. Like you look at France right now, they're like, wait, you're going to make me retire older? I'm going to take to the streets.
But, okay, well look at Canada, right? That was pretty liberal. Look at Canada, and they just shut them off, right? I don't want them to shut my stuff off, and they could totally do that. How many times have you freaked out at MetaMask when you couldn't even log in?
Now we have the long march.
How is it different?
Now
we have the long
they have
march
to go through the
authoritarianism,
bank intermediaries, and it takes a little while, and they have to get a pretend warrant. So there's
I would argue in a world
there's
still,
pretend red tape.
I would argue in a world where CBDCs and like cryptocurrency is ubiquitous and everyone around the world is using it, I would argue the nerds of the world of the future will create the way to surpass this if we have mass adoption. If we don't, then yeah, we can get crushed. But if everyone's using it, there will be the layer on top, like Pirate Bay, that exists. And so I wouldn't worry too much about whether people will be able to figure out a solution to the problem. I'm more excited about everyone using crypto and making the world like faster, and therefore we can actually outrun.
So you're saying a CBDC is good because all the problems are true and we'll all leave it, and then people who stay on the CBDC might get a helping hand from the government.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of like I think we need to invent the internet, even though there's going to be huge amounts of negatives, because the positives will be greater, even though we will lack a lot of privacy because of it.
All right, let's finish on that note. We got 1 minute left to go in the show. David, you predicted 28,000 this week. It is at 28,000 for Bitcoin. Where are we going?
Going to 32, baby.
Woo. 32. Does that depend on what the Fed does today?
Yeah, 32 immediately if it goes in at 0, and 32 over a week if it goes in at 25.
Okay.
And if it goes in at 50, then I'm going to go with 45, because everyone will just lose complete faith in everything.
All right,
There's no downside, folks.
Any other predictions before we sign off today?
Exact same. 32. I'm with David on this one.
Nick?
Nothing for me. I'm on the sidelines waiting for the Bitcoin cycle to move into alts, which NFTs.
You're waiting for Crichton to take it all.
Oh yeah, I've been waiting for the Sunday game. We go against Princeton. Let's go. I'm a Crichton Maxi.
Crichton Blue Jays.
Good luck.
All right, there we go. Let's finish up with that, and we'll finish it with Release the Crichton, and we'll see you all again next week.
Rise to the
Guys.
See you guys.
Party on. What's this called? Big announcement coming soon? Oh yeah. 5, 4, 3.